The two developmental cognitive theorists are Lev Vygotsky and Jean Piaget. Vygotsky believed that connection between children, peers, and adults is an integral part of the social culture. Vygotsky had devised a 5-step process of social development which consisted of 1. Providing tools and guidance, 2. Adult supervision, 3. Adults aid and assess, 4. Provide scaffolding, 5. Adults guide the child's previous knowledge into a different scenario. Piaget's contribution to cognitive development led to the discovery of children's development. Piaget believes that teachers and adults were not needed to aid a child's learning as they have already developed the skills needed to do so. Piaget is also responsible for devising the 4 stages of human development, which consisted of 1. Sensory motor, 2. Pre-operational, 3. Concrete operational, and 4. Formal operationals. Lawrence Kohlberg and Maria Montessori are 2 key moral developmental theorists. Kohlberg's theory was inspired by Jean Piaget. He wanted to expand his works even further in relation to moral development. Kohlberg believes that this theory relates closely to human beings and their logical way of thinking as being independent learners. Kohlberg had also devised the 6 stages of moral development, which outlines the different levels of ethical behavior. Montessori's theory is primarily focused as a child-centered learning method. Her own theory is considered to be anti-traditionalist, which goes against the formation of classroom tests and being graded due to students' performance. Pushing the idea of being practical and hands-on in order to help a child's learning would allow the freedom of self-exploration and thinking. Observation of the child's learning as well as language and action movements are also encouraged in a more positive approach. Furthermore, Montessori does encourage children's need through reasoning with their moral beliefs. Montessori states that children in general need to be familiar with what is right from wrong. Cognitive and moral development is vital to teachers as they need to understand the thought process of the students. Every student has different ways of learning. It is our duty to help the students who are having difficulties to reach their goals. We need to look at ways to make education understandable for the students. Teachers need to remind the students of the correct behavior and tolerance which needs to be enforced in the classroom. Our duty is to promote both aspects and to ensure that every student can make it through their education. Understanding the mentioned cognitive and moral developmental theorist has enabled me to think of possible ways to approach teaching in the classroom in a more logical way. I am able to think of possible learning activities which would stimulate a child's learning. It would give me the opportunity to observe and record the students' learning. It would allow me to showcase my creative side to teaching. Being inventive and making education interesting is what I strive for. An example of the application of cognitive development in the classroom would have to be at a grade 4 level, in which students will have the opportunity to use computers in the computer lab to play an online maths game called Maths Baseball. Students will have the opportunity to play at any skill level. If you get the answer right, you're required to hit the ball. If you get 3 incorrect answers, it's 3 strikes and you're out. This game is perfect for students to develop their cognitive thinking and also to stimulate their learning to mathematics in a fun, productive way. An example of the application of moral development in the classroom would have to be at a Year 5 level, in which students will engage in a whole class group reading. They will be required to sit on the floor in a large circle. The teacher starts off reading for a period of time until she calls upon the next person to read and to take over. This will continue until all students have read. The chosen storybook entitled The Karate Kid Part 2 consists of moral values and respect. An example of this is when Daniel and Mr. Miyagi aided Sato to stand and walk to the storm shelter. When the three of them were safely inside, Sato bowed deeply to Mr. Miyagi and Daniel. Allowing the students to read and understand the moral values would help them to enrich their knowledge of moral development and moral actions in the classroom.